Hi, it is December 10th, 2021. My name is Nicholas Blakiston, and this is my YouTube channel. I previously had a lot of videos up here that I have taken down because I didn't like them. And I want to keep things concise. I don't want to waste your guys' time. So the videos I put out from this point forward, I'm going to make a strong attempt to keep them on point and not waste your guys' time. So if you were referred to my website through one of my, I have some people going around the community right now with some bumper stickers saying that they're not vaccinated, and if you want to know why, go to my website. Well, on my website, humandiscourse.com, which maybe you found this channel through that, or maybe it'll go vice versa, but on my website you'll find links to a bunch of people who discuss the vaccine and reasons for hesitancy against that. But personally, it just is as simple as I don't trust the pharmaceutical companies. I feel they're very corrupt. I feel like they have a lot of political influence, and I feel like there's a lot of conflicts of interest, especially with the statisticians, the government, and academic statisticians. I just think there's a lot of conflicts of interest. Media companies, same thing. So I live in a society where I have a hard time trusting the information that I hear. And so I evaluate each different topic individually, each individual, and each topic each individual mentions. But some of the commentators who I think are very good and worth listening to at this time, I have listed on my website at humandiscourse.com. I also have a book for sale on that website, and well, right now it just links you to the Amazon page. I'm hoping later to have a direct sales link on my website. But my book, it's called Human Discourse, The Bridge to Collective Mind and Spirit. In the first, there's 3 sections of this book. The first section I talk about collapse and transition. So I expect there to be an economic crisis, a global economic crisis, as we have been living off credit, and I expect our credit bubble to collapse. I don't talk a lot about the reasons for that in the book because I feel like that's been pretty well covered by other commentators, especially libertarians. If you want to specifically know about, so for the vaccines on my website, if you want to know people who I think have good information on that, I highly recommend Jeff Berwick. I highly recommend Max Egan. I think David Icke's worth a listen to. I think a lot of people on my website are. Greg Hunter, I think he puts out a lot of interesting information. And so those are some of the people for that. As far as the economic crisis, I highly recommend Peter Schiff, Mike Maloney, Ron Paul, Rob Sultan, the I Love Prosperity guy, whatever his name is. So on my website, you'll see links to those people. So you can go ahead and check them out if you're interested in those topics. But as far as my book, that's kind of the starting place. So I accept that, okay, we're going to have this credit crisis. Things are going to get wiped clean. How's that going to look? How do we transition? So the first part of the book, I talk about that transition, and I talk about government services. What are we going to do about government? What are we going to do about private enterprises? What do they need to do? What action steps need to be taken in the wake of this collapse? My objective is, to create a better world. So for me, the vision of a better world looks like a free world, to the greatest extent possible. So I am a libertarian, but I think my book adds some stuff that other libertarians don't talk about as much or haven't as much. And so one is it's to do the transition. So how do we get from here to where we want to get, which is a free society, with minimal interference to critical services? So the first section of the book is kind of the collapse and transition. The second section of the book is economic markets. So here I discuss all the different economic markets: security, justice, agriculture, manufacturing, entertainment, utilities, transportation. I discuss a lot of markets, and then love, which I consider to be an economic market, and I explain in the book why I consider that to be an economic market. Not only do I consider it to be an economic market, but I consider it to be the market which has been the most mispriced in this bubble. And so I expect these markets are going to correct, but I talk about basically with freedom, what is this going to look like, and how is this market going to survive? How is it going to thrive? So I go through the markets. That's the second section of the book. The third section of the book is, I call it Ascendance. And so this is a kind of forward-looking part of the book. Okay, we get our freedom, we get our markets, but we still need to heal spiritually. We still need to heal the rifts and the divisions that exist between people. And ultimately, we want to ascend and become part of the galactic host. So I talk about mysticism. I talk about foreign nations and the relationships with them. I talk about respect. I have this big idea that we haven't been granting respect in the right ways in our society, that that a lot of people have been granting respect based on how much money people have, for example, and I talk about why that's not necessarily the best metric to decide whether someone is worthy of respect. So I talk about essentially acts of kindness, acts of goodness, acts that are productive and that are helpful as being respectable actions. And I only talk about removing a baseline level of respect that everyone in society should have when people are acting out of cruelty, with cruel intent. So I talk about respect. I talk about certain potentially demonic type creatures. I speculate about that. I speculate about angels, and I paint a picture to a degree of some of the things I envision for the future. So that is my book. That's what it's about. Right now it's offered on Amazon for $20. I hopefully will have it on my website at some point for less than that, maybe 15. But also the copy that is there right now is the first edition. There are a few typos that have been discovered, and I'm talking about literally like 3 so far, but 2 in one of the poems and then one other one, and a couple other. So there's going to be a few little revisions that are going to be made, and it's going to get republished under the same ISBN. It's not going to be like an official second edition, but it will be slightly different. So the ones that you're getting now are going out of style, but maybe if you get them now, you'll be one of the few, because I expect over time that more people will buy this book, because I think this book offers a way out of the darkness, and I think the people who read it are gonna see that and hopefully recommend it to their friends, and I'm hoping it will grow and that a lot of people will end up reading my book. I may at a later date do an ebook. I may do an audio book. I also have a book of poetry that's in the works. There are 4 of my poems. There are 4 of my poems in the book. I do have a poetry channel, but I think I'm going to probably delete the ones I have up there now and re-record them. I don't like some of my recordings. I've been going through a lot of emotional stuff the last 4 years, and I'm trying to clean some of that up. I don't think it is doing anything for me or anyone else having all those other videos I recorded up, so I've taken them down. I will probably do the same with my poetry videos. You know, some stuff I've said hasn't come out well. It probably has sounded shitty. And, you know, I'm not trying to be enemies with people here. You know, my book is called Human Discourse, and even though I do outline a path forward, it's certainly subject to revision, and I'm only one person. There's different people with different expertise. So it's more of a starting place, a starting point in a journey of discourse that I believe we need to have. And I think this can help us get there. I think the other thing my book talks about, which a lot of libertarian-oriented books don't cover so much, is the idea of compassion and the idea of empathy and kindness, human kindness. Being what our brother's keeper. And I talk about charity and how that can be the method by which societal concerns can be addressed, so that the people who care about those concerns are the ones managing them and the ones addressing them. I think that's a lot superior to a system of taxation where everyone is just being taxed. But, you know, I've heard other libertarians say, oh, I don't believe in charity, etc. And I think that's a bunch of bullshit. I think no matter who you are, where you've gotten in this world is not entirely to your own credit. We are blessed if we learn about financial topics, if we learn about business, if we have the opportunity to learn those things, to apply those things, the right opportunities come up, we're born in the right country, where we just have the opportunities we needed to get where we needed to get. And a lot of people on this planet simply don't have those opportunities. And I feel that those of us who are fortunate in certain ways have an obligation to our society. But I don't feel that that obligation should be coerced at the threat of a gun, the way that taxation does. I believe it should be voluntary contributions. I think people can apply economic pressure through the use of the boycott. I think that's been an effective method that consumers have used to direct the behavior of companies. And, you know, political power seems to inevitably get controlled by the most corrupt people in society. And those who aren't willing to be corrupt have a competitive disadvantage. They get fewer campaign contributions, they get fewer political handouts, and those who are willing to be corrupt use their political power to prevent their competition from arising and to oppress those who aren't in the club. And so I don't believe in political power that's based on extortion of the population to fund itself. I believe in a charitably funded defense force that will protect people, protect their property, and perform a handful of other functions that essentially are just derivatives of those two things. And I propose what I think this force should look like, what their rules should be. But again, it's just a starting point in that discussion. And that's what my book's all about. So if you're reading this, I appreciate you for doing so. Or so if you're listening to this, and if you read my book, I appreciate that. And you know, I was kicked off Facebook about a year ago. I still am on Twitter as of now. Those links are available on my website. You can, if you need to get a hold of me, you can send me a direct message on Twitter. That's probably the best way. There's also a contact me feature through the website that you can use at the current time. You can also leave comments on this video. So with that, I hope you guys like what you find. Bye.